Eu acho que isto dá PDF, não é? Ah?
Temos aqui o nosso super informático. Mais alunos a vir que estão a almoçar.
Espera. Espera, não, vamos começar.
Sim.
Mas não, tem que estar à vontade. Não tem que ser às 4h30.
Como?
Não tem que ser às 4h30.
Ok. Não, mas também é para não abusar muito do teu tempo.
Vai ficar aqui. Aqui.
Então, princípio do lado direito, só para deixa-me só experimentar, por favor.
Tá?
Deixa eu passar um bocadinho mais alto aqui.
Isto vai para lá.
Depois, quando quiser ligar para o vídeo,
Mas podes ficar aí.
ou no bolso, quando quiser. Experimente só para o vídeo.
Tá? Tá.
PDF. Esse. É que anda para frente.
Deixa-me só ver se está ligado.
Está para trás. Para frente, para frente. Para frente. Isto.
Então, está a funcionar? Não quer?
Não sei entregar isso. Tens dois aqui neste.
Sim, nós vamos começar. Eu vou. Vamos lá. Já.
Vamos começar. Bom, boa tarde a todos novamente. Pedro, muito obrigada pela tua disponibilidade em partilhar aqui connosco o teu trabalho, não é? E os teus processos de pensamento para os diferentes projetos. Eu vou fazer só uma breve apresentação. O Pedro Reis, toda a gente com certeza conhece, já daqui da escola e do seu trabalho, é licenciado pela Faculdade de Arquitetura da Universidade de Porto em 1994. Trabalhou no Porto com Fernando Távora e Eduardo Souto de Moura. Bom, isto também era outras histórias, outra conversa. Até 1998. E mais tarde com Toshiko Mori em Nova Iorque. Em 2000 foi convidado pelas Nações Unidas para coordenar a equipa técnica responsável pela reconstrução de Timor-Leste e pelo projeto de requalificação escolar administrado pelo Banco Mundial. Em 2003 fundou o ateliê Pedro Reis, arquiteto, em Lisboa. Seu trabalho recebeu vários prémios em concursos nacionais e internacionais e foi também nomeado para a representação oficial portuguesa na 8ª Bienal de Arquitetura de São Paulo. Desde 2006 é professor do Departamento de Arquitetura aqui nesta escola que está aqui connosco. E, Pedro, começamos.
Obrigado.
No final, se acharem até conveniente, se tiverem alguma dúvida, entretanto, no meio da apresentação, ou interrompendo nos momentos certos, obviamente, e no final, se quiserem fazer algum comentário, algumas perguntas, são muito bem-vindas e desejáveis.
Bem, ou mesmo durante, uma conversa informal que acho que neste contexto de escola, neste seminário, parece bastante útil.
Isso.
Bem, obrigado pelo convite. Eu já há bastante tempo que não tenho partilhado o trabalho que tenho feito e de facto agora estou a recomeçar a visitar um bocadinho os trabalhos que tenho andado a desenvolver. E pareceu-me útil no contexto deste seminário falar-vos, que eu acho que é o objetivo, falar-vos bastante mais sobre o processo, o cansaço, a dificuldade, as alegrias de todo este processo que vamos tendo ao longo da construção do projeto e da obra. E para isso ia partilhar com vocês 4 projetos. Vamos sentar um bocadinho mais. 4 projetos. Um que é um projeto de uma casa que nós estamos agora a acabar, já acabou a passar, mas ainda vamos acabar, não comporta. Outro que é também uma casa que fizemos no bairro, 2 casas aliás. Depois um projeto maior, que é um projeto de intervenção urbana, de habitação. E depois um projeto de requalificação do antigo palácio, de transformação de um outro.
Pedro, consegues, desculpa, afastar só um pouquinho o microfone para os mais abaixo?
Está a funcionar.
Não dá?
Está para trás. Para trás. Okay. Bem, antes de mais, queria só partilhar com vocês isto. É uma primeira casa que eu fiz, acho que é. Some students asked me to do it in English. Sorry. So I think I'll try to do it in English, okay? So you can understand. I think it's important for you to know a little bit of the work. I wanted to share. This was the first project I did. Was a competition. Was a house that came out of a competition to design a house in Plantage. This was 20 years ago. No, more than 12 years ago. And this was right after 20 years ago. Right after I came to Portugal. And this was a competition for a house in Melide, Plantage. And the idea was to create a weekend house, holiday house. So this was the first project I did. After this, I'm not going to explain it too much, but it's just it's a project that was done in taking advantage of the landscape and relationship between the more private areas that are more grounded on the land, and then more open areas that take advantage of the landscape. But this was really one of the first projects we did, and after that we started doing several houses that we've been doing now. Isto é ponteiro aqui. Some of them. So this was one in Leeds. Now we're doing 2 more. We're doing also 3 houses. We did 2 in Comporta. We're doing 2 more in Grândola, in Santiago de Cacém, and then another one down. So this is, after that house, we started all these new houses in this area. So that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years. This is going up and down. Okay. So the house, this house in Comporta, we started the project in 2016, I think. So quite a long time ago. And this was designed for a family. They bought 2 plots. This is a beautiful plot where you can have a sea view. So they bought 2 plots that you could have a main house and a guest house. This is, and then we had to find a strategy to how to design in this area, especially because it's an area where you have a very specific traditional architecture that is the original one linked with fishing and all of that, and people have been revisiting that model and trying to recreate that in a different way. And I didn't want to go into that way of thinking and designing. I wanted to take advantage of the way that we could use the space, the outdoor spaces, and the relationship between in and out, and the possibility of being outside, but not so much to go into the tectonics of the shed and the straw and all of that. So I wanted to create a different way of being in Comporta, but that you could at the same time take advantage of that possibility. So this is something that we normally do. We try to define an atmosphere to understand exactly where we are working, what kind of elements that we want to bring into the design process. Either natural elements or things that come from the surrounding area or the grounds, and this is something that we thought that, of course, the most important thing here is to deal with the sand. So how the sand and the dune and all these elements are going to influence the design of the house. And so this was the first approach. This is how we start getting involved in the land and to bring all this into the design. So, and then we have to understand, first we have to understand exactly, the geography of the site. I mean, what's the most important thing, and how is this house going to be influenced by the geography? So here in this case, of course, is the setting of the dune and the beach and the rice fields and all of that. But this will really, it really define the way we're going to use the house and the context of the atmosphere that we're going to get. So here in this case, of course, this is very influenced by the dune that stretches all the way along here after the end of Sado River. And we have a beautiful pine area at the back, so you can still have this feeling of having the forest behind and the ocean in front. We also have the rice field, so this is a development here. They brought the 2 plots that are really centered on the shell, so that we are surrounded by the other house, and we can have a view over the ocean. A very filtered view, but still a view over the ocean, and the influence of all the rice fields that are in front. As you can see here, so these are the 2 plots. This was the first house that was designed there, or built there, and then these are the 2 main plots that are facing the rice fields and the sea. So then we have to find a strategy. So we have to brought 2 plots together so that we can, first of all, the idea is of having 2 houses that we can have, this is part of the design, that we can feel that it's 1 house and not 2 houses. So we need to find a strategy that we could concentrate the floor plan, the built-up area in the central element, and then we need to define a strategy how we're going to bring together this idea of creating this atmosphere where you can be in and out all the time and have a shared space at the center of the house. So this was the first moment of the design. that we need to first break the area so that we can allow air and extend the views towards outside, and that we can have multiple views and different corners of the house. And then define a way that we have to find to cover this and create platforms, 2 slabs that can really define the areas that are more related to outside than inside. And then again, we need to do some research on materials, on the shades, on the elements that are from different projects, from some of our projects that we've done before, that we can start bringing all of this together and start building a design that can incorporate some of these ideas. Some of them are just impressions or feelings that we have, but then we can forget about this and start to develop our own design. First idea, we do this carved wood models. They're like every time we have one moment of the design that we can set an idea of a way of approaching the design, and it sets the distribution of the program or the way it's set in the land. We always do these wood models. It's carved models, and it's a very synthetic element of the process. So in this case, first of all, we wanted to stabilize one platform, then create a different level. This is where we would be using all setting up the pool and the outdoor area. So this will be a common area. This will be bedrooms on top. The living room will be here with the patio behind. But then we realized that having these 2 levels on the ground was not good. This was breaking the use of the house and would break the plot in 2. So this was not a good strategy. So we decided to go to another strategy, which is to bring everything to the top area because it could extend the views, but we still had this problem of how we would do this. So later on, of course, there was a transition here of the ground, and having these volumes was not really making the way we wanted to create, because in the end we would not have enough space out here. So then this is what was the final one. Then we decided to reduce the number of volumes, and it's still not the final one, but there's another movement. But then create these volumes that you can put here, all the bedrooms, all different functions, and then just 2 big slabs that would cover the living areas, and with a major pool in the middle. This pool was not done here, it was done in the center. Sorry. So in the end, this is how, and of course we use a lot of 3D images in the process. We actually use the 3D to design because it's very effective. Here we still have 2 pools, but what we wanted to do is to create this feeling of the dune coming all the way up to the house, so that we feel surrounded by the natural vegetation and the dune. And then having these pavilions that have these private courtyards with shaded areas with wood shutters that allow you to have some privacy when when people are sitting here, and then when there's nobody, you can open the whole thing and have everything. But the feeling is that these glass elements here would all go inside, and you have a feeling of being outside in the social areas, and then more privacy in the bedroom areas. And then you have the central pool. This pool was not done. Central pool, the pool area here for food, barbecue, or whatever. And always having this space, you can always look east, look south, look west, look north, in all directions. And also have the feeling that you have it's part of one compound and not 2 separate houses, although in reality they are, but they can be used as just one, with the garden in the middle. And here, as I was saying, is to have this sense of creating this possibility of opening and then having this private garden that extends the view. So that we could have this feeling of being in and out all the time, which is the way the house is used today. We go there and the house is many times open. So, and then of course, I just want to share some of these drawings. They're very confusing, but it's important for you to know that, and I have several drawings here of this kind, that you know that, you know, it's not what you get in Instagram in the end. You know, it's a whole long process of design and drawing and redrawing and redrawing until you have the final solution. And you go on site, you still have more to decide and to. Just passing this as fast as we can. Bathrooms, pavements, different materials, detailing, facades, doors, windows, more details, gates, handrails, pool, and then a bit of construction. So this was a big, as you can see here, this was, the whole plot had to be removed, all earthworks everywhere. So what looked like a very, in the end, integrated solution means that we have to dig all the way around. Then we were also taking care of the project management for the clients. It's a German family that has been, became friends after this. And then what happened is that the first contractor went bankrupt, so we had to stop the works, and then we have to find a way to contract every single small subcontractor to finalize the concrete work. So at least we would have the concrete work done by the same company. So this was 1 year of delay, so that we had to be more than architects, but more project managers and liaise between the client and the contractors in order to get, at least this part of the work done. We also had to go and search for stone. We went through the whole country to get stone for some of the walls that you're going to see later. But then in the end, we went to this the place where they break stone for the concrete, and that's where we got the stone, which was like 20 kilometers away from the site. Selecting the stone, going there, getting the rubble, transforming the stone, laying the stone. Sorry. Taking care of the garden. How do you do a garden? They wanted to have the garden to feel as close as possible to the natural landscape, but you still need to have some trees. Otherwise, you have to wait 30 years. So we had to bring trees in. We had to readjust all the levels and everything. And for that, you need to also control these things and see how it's. And it's like a huge operation. We had to cut one road and then open another road. Here a little bit more advanced. And then materials. How are we going to deal with materials for this house? One thing that we wanted, going back to the first slides, we wanted to have this very soft and feeling of something very linked to the dune. So we had to make a selection of very few materials. That's why we have the concrete on the slabs, the white concrete, and then we have this terrazzo flooring all over the place, and that there's a blend between in and out. Outside we also have terrazzo pavers, that the whole thing blends in with the sand, and that we feel that that the house is an extension of the dune, that you are totally integrated in the dune. But to do that, it's work, and it's quite a lot of work. To get these people on site and just really totally embedded in the work. Then another element that we wanted is how are we going to make the walls? So we had the decision for the ceiling that was going to be white concrete, the flooring was going to be the terrazzo, and then for the exterior, we wanted to have something that would bring some texture, some vibration, and also that feeling that it will blend in with the sand again. So we thought about having this, first to have this white clay bricks, but then they were too expensive and we have to go into another solution of using the brick because it ages very well and it's long lasting even if you cover it. And then we used a layer of cement and then in some cases lime to do the rendering so that you could feel this blended materials. But for that we need to do it 1 time, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times until we finally get the mixture of the render, to get the texture, the quantity of render that you need to leave in place, the quantity that you need to take out, so that you get a smooth and even and natural feeling for these walls. And then we have to mix up materials. So in this case we only have the cement, the concrete, the terrazzo, the bricks, and then some wood for contrasting in some of the layers. This house has not been photographed. This is construction photos. And then the doors, and the wood is all oiled. So there's it's all natural finishes. Then you have to detail some of the places where you touch. This is very important. It's like where the things where you put your hand, when you use the house. This is also part of a very important element to create and to integrate all these elements and create the atmosphere. So this is the feeling of the house now, and it's not being photographed yet. On the pool, there's no image of the pool. Yeah, of the pool. So here you can see the detail of this edge, just to get this straight pavement perfectly leveled with the water was a nightmare, but it's an effect that you get really. I mean, later on we'll have more images of this when it's published. Okay, now going to another geography. It's again a similar program. I mean, the other house, it's about, 1,200 square meters house. And then we're going, at the same time, before this one, we were doing also 2 houses in Dubai. And with a similar setup of having 2 houses and somehow a similar condition of being close to the water. So, Dubai, this is a new island. Dubai, as you all know, it's very artificial, as any city is artificial in the sense that it's all built, but it's artificial is the compression of time here, the amount of time all these houses and buildings were done, which is what's impressive. So this is, I think, will be the biggest difference and why it feels so strange, because we don't have a sense of time in this place. So, but this is one of the latest developments. It's a very sort of exclusive island right in front in Jumeirah, where you have one Bulgari hotel and then a few villas. And this is a very small island that, although it's so totally artificial and the sand doesn't feel very nice because it's sand that is direct from the sea there. It's not something that comes from the dune, so it's a different thing. But the feeling here was that, all this is going to be, there's nothing there. So there's there's nothing, just infrastructure. Like what we have is a pile of sand with infrastructure, that's it. And the only thing we have is the relationship with the sea and the relationship with the skyline of the sea. So as you can see, these are those ugly big islands. This is a very small island, just has one hotel here, and then these are all plots of houses. This one is again centered here in the middle of the bay, so it has a nice view over the skyline and also to the big buildings that we have. So the idea here was, unlike the other house, these plots are very compressed, they're very small for the size of houses that we are of each house. Each house of this plot is the same area as we have on both houses. So this is the double of the size. this is a house done for a Saudi family, where they normally, by tradition, do the eldest son always accompanies the father. So they had to design 2 houses, and I think we took a little bit of the idea from this project also to the other one, which is to create this center space as much as possible and shift the houses, the volumes and occupation of the land to the sides. So here we had 3 floors, but there was no way we could put the house all in 1 floor. So the strategy was to, first of all, lift the house from the ground and have a strategy that you feel that you have this relationship between in and out, so that the house also feels like the dune is coming towards the house. So this defines really the concept of the building. And this can be very transparent because it's the social areas of the house where you can really be in and out, so there's no question of privacy. And then they have a strategy to create all the privacy on the top floors, so that when the family can go in. And then you have the basement where you have all the staff, the working people, all the technical areas and all that. So basically, again, this was an idea of breaking the mass so that you could have patios, a small garden here, view to the side, also allow some view from the sides to the sea view, and create a center space here where you can have a more common area. And then we have 2 pools. One pool is more linear, so this house will be more, the layout will be more in this direction, and then you have another pool that is more in that direction, so we can have some more playful elements here. This is the images of the house, so that you can hear very easily understand what we mean. So we have these very big beams that really lift all the house and the volumes from the floor, and then all this glass can go and move inside these areas. And then on the top floors we have these several volumes with different heights, where we have the musharraf, which is a traditional element in the northern, in the Arab world and in North Africa. North Africa, where you have the musharraf, which is a beautiful architectural device that allows you to see through and have a beautiful view towards outside, and actually add a new layer into this relation between being inside and outside, but it guarantees total privacy from the outside, so nobody can really see what's happening inside the house. And this was very successful because this allowed them to, for instance, in traditional architecture, normally you have one small element like this in a room, but here it allows the family to be totally comfortable and walk freely from room to room, from volume to volume, knowing that there's nobody looking at them. So again, here was trying to bring some elements of freshness, the light, the shade, which is a very strong, important element here in this project, and some vibration of the palm, and these are the way the gardens are done here, and then some introducing some sophistication in terms of finishes, that we can have richer finishes of the brass or of the travertino, which is a stone that is going to be used on the ground floor, that connects and blends in with the sun. So these are also images that we use in order to start thinking about what's the atmosphere that we want to have, what elements we want to have mixed in this house. The bird is there because we have one area where it's full of birds, and it's beautiful to recreate this idea of Eden and the garden where you can really relax and enjoy life. So here you can see these are still details from the original, one of the first drawings, but you can see this house. We have these volumes that are cladded in stone, this, and this, and this. This is also cladded in stone. And then you have some metal elements here that will allow the structure to work. but then in general all of this is open and all of this is open. And we always have a relation between the two houses. These are the top floors. We have private areas, the big suites in the front, staff areas, staff just for the service, and then more bedrooms. And then we have the basement here, which is the kitchen. But this was, again, a very interesting project because we have to learn how men and women live in the house. So it's especially for the staff, the people who are living in the house. The men are only responsible for driving, kitchen at the back. So there's a basement just for kitchen for men, and then women are in the house. So it's totally separate, and you cannot have service circuits that could be mixed. The man can never meet a woman in the house. So it's very, and to do this with this very limited space, it was a very big nightmare. But anyway, I'm not going to trouble you through that because it's very hard. So this is, as I was saying, this is the atmosphere that you get. You know, you have all these filters between layers of glass, layers of mocharabia, that you can really have this feeling between being in privacy but allowing to see through. And or in contrast to what you get in the ground floor, where you can have a totally open ground floor. Again, I'm going to just share some of the drawings. I mean, this, of course, we cannot read them properly, but just to have an idea of just the coordination with engineering here was totally my domain. Actually, it was done by a Portuguese company, it was done by AFA, and then we had to hire engineers in Dubai to recalculate everything, and then it was a nightmare. Detailing everything from basement to ceiling to. I want to show all these drawings so that it will be ad nausea with drawings, that you understand that after you leave school, there's another world coming which is a bit more. For instance, here we had to detail every switch. Okay, every button you have on the switch, we had to number them and to define exactly and write down exactly for what function they are. So imagine the coordination between electrical layouts and electronics and architecture, and then finding a place in the building to have all these things. So, but then of course things started going up. This house was just finished. I haven't shared any. I haven't taken the pictures yet. Just the clients open and invite us for the opening. But you know, this was the first moment that you can really understand what the house is going to be. It's when you do this big, large beam and you see the extension of the house and how the span is. Of course, the first time we had one of the beams had to be corrected 2 times because there's one key element which is here that we need to have when you do the cladding on the top and then the cladding on the above here, we can't have these floating boxes overlapping the beam. So there have been several mistakes like this, and then they could not, and they had to do it together. So this was selecting, defining the pattern of the mocharabia, how many layers, you had to do 2 layers, 3 layers. Each element has sometimes 1 layer at the back, 1 layer in the front. You have to test all of this, test it on site, test it in the office, test it in different ways.
What's the material?
No? It's aluminium. Huh? Aluminium. It's aluminium. This is the closest area for where the house in front. Bathrooms. Ad nauseam. I'm looking at this and I'm remembering the nights we spent doing this. The stair was a very sculptural element. You had the stair all cantilevered from the side, and then you had this element that was Getting it all freestanding. The handrail, we did mock-ups for the handrail. The handrail is all done in stone. This is carved stone, CNC, and then light. This is all the stairs all in travertino and then brass. See there. And you have to use a bit the textured stone everywhere to transition for the shower in and out. This is gate that you don't see any railings or anything. And this is like a summary of summarizes the idea of the house. So we have all these elements all covered in travertino at the bottom, and then you have the metal cladding at the top. And then at night you have this a bit Las Vegas, but it is what it is. And the house, I mean, the clients are very happy because the house is really outstanding in the skylight of the island. And of course, here the lighting is also very important because it's the way of to come up with a specific angle of the lighting so that when you are in the house, you don't feel the light in your face. But the finish, the company was very good. So here is what I wanted to explain a little bit, which is, it's how playful it is to have these volumes done in concrete and then the light elements in metal and the glass in between, and the way it links with the garden. So all of this can be open. You can open everything here and there, and you have this feeling. Or the transparencies and reflections that you get from one to the other. Okay. This is now going to jump to another scale. This was a project done in Lisbon. So this was a project done in Lisbon. It was a competition for housing development in Alheiro. And this is it. We're going to see the site. I mean, it's a site that really reflects the way that the city. This is an image from a movie, Verdes Anos, that really shows the development of the city and the background. I mean, the waiting part of the city that was there to be developed. And the project is in Alheiro on the way toward Alais, and it's the leftovers of a big area where they were taking sand. That's why it's called Alheiro for construction. But this was such a hard way to hard stone that it was difficult to disassemble the hill, and so it was left until now. But this was really we went to see this movie just to understand a little bit the atmosphere that we have in this area, because you really feel that from the 60s until today, this part of the city changed very little. You can still feel this disconnect between the design of the buildings that are facing an avenue and that links Alheiro Square to the airport, but at the back you still have this no man's land, an area that is still like it was in the 60s a little bit. So, and then we asked the photographer, Pedro, to go and try to understand a little bit or capture this feeling of this place, because we really wanted to do something here that was going to change this, but at the same time based on the understanding of what we have there. So that you have this construction against the sort of leftovers of the rural natural wild, land. And you have this big block of hard sand. Okay, so I don't know if I think we have put this out of order, but anyway. So the idea here was this is one project I'm going to explain to you, or to use an example to explain the relationship between municipality, the strategic development of the city, the developers, the architects, how this process is sometimes complex, and how we have to deal with this. So this was the big challenge. I mean, the municipality had this difficult place because there was this hill that we needed to do something about it. There's a big highway, the connection here on the traffic, not highway, but too many lanes of traffic here on the bottom. You have a development at the top. You have to connect to one very stabilized development, which is Alvalade and Reis, Avenida João 21, and then this transition to Olaias. It's a totally different kind of concept, urban concept of the city. So here we have two elements, or two ways of designing the city, and the idea, the challenge here that we saw that was interesting was to find a way to create a building and an urban strategy that can really put these two models of designing the city together and establish a transition. So this was the main goal to start the competition. And I think we have put a slide here out of order. Out of place. Okay. So since you have let me see if they have put this was not here. Sorry. There's missing one drawing. Anyway, this is the big. So this is the main avenue. Okay, this is Arieiro. So let me see. There's something out of order. Let me see. I saw a drawing here that was. Explain. There's one missing here. So this is the big avenue, this is Ariel, this is a more established area of the city, transition there. So you have all this development of new buildings up here at this scale. And you have a big park here that is connecting, that is broken here because of the topography, the orography of the land. And so our idea was to, first of all, to create a building. Of course, disassemble as less as possible the original rock. We define a building here that could stand on this avenue because it's a very heavy traffic, and you need to have a building that really has enough body to follow it, to define front of the avenue, and then have a park at the back that could really make a connection between these existing green areas and all the big park that is coming from the back. So this was the two elements here that we had to work with. But of course we had a different height of 3 floors here. So we had to find a strategy that we didn't want to have this break, something that was breaking the lower part from the top part. So we had to find a strategy that's breaking the volumes in a way that we could, at least visually, we could get a connection between these two. So this is what we started by defining this. Defining a building that does, that finishes, this is a building waiting here, that stabilizes this front. This is a taller building that could relate to the other taller buildings that are around. So this is sort of the mass that it's going to connect with this urban morphology here, and this would be a linear building that would connect with more this one and the one that makes the traditional occupation of the street. So in that sense, so we wanted to have to sort of rotate this area so that we could do shift to that side, and this way we could finish this square and this way of designing the city, and have a new way here, which is linked to the other one, and have a passage here, visual at least. So I need to go back. Okay. So at the same time, we wanted to create landscape design and urban design that could integrate these two areas. So we sort of decided to create a new park here, and then have a outdoor garden and square, like a public space where you can use during the day, and a passage to the lower area of the building, of the street, so that you could frame this. A bit confused with this back and front. Still delay on. No. Okay. So, and from this side, you would have, on the top side, you have the continuation of the park. The idea was to leave some of to make cuts here on these rocks and leave a geological layering of all these areas, so it's integrated, like have a little bit of geology class in the garden, and to create a taller building that is connected to the other ones, and a lower building with a more traditional way of organizing the city. The idea also for the building was to create like terraced gardens all over, because I think in this case we'd have a very strong connection with the surrounding park. This is a very ugly building that we need to integrate, and then we create this lower building, which has defined by 3 floors here, that gives the urban context and a smaller scale to accompanying the street. This is a little bit set back, and then the other one taller with that sort of same structure or dimension as the other. So of course, this square was, as we were saying, we wanted to integrate as much as possible these tourões, as we call it, which are these blocks of stone that are leftovers from that is like a carved garden throughout the passage. So this is just to show you a little bit. I mean, the process. I mean, we're developing the 3Ds, and then you have to change things, and so this is how we work quite a lot. It's like we put it on 3D and work on the images and get the feedback from the images, and then make corrections, and then go back to the drawings, and then go back to the 3Ds again. So it's a continuous evolving process. Like making changes like this, you have to change, instead of having 2, have 1. Or, you still do the same as you do, continue doing the same, which is to draw on the table. Yeah, here you can see the link between this passage and the way the building is set up. And then, of course, we put the presentation all in a book for the clients. Diagrams to explain.
Também é muito importante, não é? É muito importante a maneira como apresentamos o projeto ao cliente, não é? Como é que comunicamos com ele.
So this was the presentation. Of course, you also have the drawings and diagrams to explain everything. How to organize the different floors, housing, office, so forth. Which I'm not going to explain, but just to show you the view. We also did some images for the interiors, just to anticipate what it can be. And like here was very well, because it's like it's better, for instance, in this case, it was better to have a smaller living room, but an outdoor terrace where you can really have enough space to have a life, to extend your life a little bit outdoor. And so this is something that we have to negotiate with the clients, or to the top apartments where you can take care of advantages of having a double height ceiling and things like that. or for instance something that we do for all projects which you cannot understand. It's all the phases of the project that we see, that we all do. And then we have a phase, and then we describe what we've been doing, what was the outcome, and then we don't put here but the number of hours, so that we know exactly how we using our time for the project, which is very important for you. Are we using our time, and to understand all the work that is put into because sometimes the clients don't understand that, because you put so many hours, you do so many changes, so many alternatives, you lose the track of all these things. So we really need to, once in a while, we have this now established. You have everything on track, that every changes we make. All the studies are full of Excel and areas. Good. I asked him when you put it here. Which is we have a drawing. I forgot to put it. We have a drawing of all the alternative studies we've done for that project, and now it's been approved. Okay. And now we spend, for instance, that project, we spent 1 year solving a problem with the land. Okay, we architects solving a problem with the land, because we know if they don't take care of it, we will not get the project. Okay, and still now we don't know if it's been approved by the municipality, but we don't know if we're going to do it in the project in the end, because they can decide to sell it and it goes to another architect. Okay, so this is life. So you can understand it. Okay? For this now is rehabilitation of an historical building. You probably don't know it, but some people from other teachers know, which is Palácio Almada Carvalhais. It's a very important building in the history of the city, because it was one of the first palaces or private houses that was done that we still have at the present. It was not destroyed by the earthquake. And we still have it today. It was done on the 1600s, and it was built by the original building was built by Rui Fernando de Almada, which was a very important man at the time. He was head of the House of India, so he was like a big tradesman, and he was a friend of Dürer. He has his portrait done by Dürer, and the family actually kept some of the works, and it was given to the Museu da Antiga, so it was a man that was linked with all the top cultural elite in Europe in the 1500s. So this was the house for him. He has a beautiful, and it's classified as a national monument, although we don't understand how the building is possible. The building arrived at this stage because it had so many different uses. I mean, it was a school. It was converted in the 20s in a bus warehouse, a bus station, which is unbelievable. But the grounds of the building, it was a huge transformation process. Then it had a printing shop. It had a nightclub that became famous. Everybody knows there, Beleza. But still, when you go there, the building resists. I mean, you still see how incredible it is that the building, with all this, the way it was so badly treated, it's still there. It's still there, up and standing. So, this was a competition. We did a competition for this building. We won the competition. We developed the whole project. We got it approved. We got the execution, detailing, design. That was all done, and the competition for the works were done, concluded. But then COVID came, and now we still don't know what's going to happen. So let's see. So, when I was explaining, this is in the Museu dos Reis. It's a tile that shows the building. It was a very important building because this was here, as you can see today, a way out of the city in Lisbon. It's still from the Roman times, where it comes from the Chiado all the way down from the back. And then the building was a very important palace because he was a tradesman, so he would have all his boats here on the beach. And then there was a connection, which you still see today, connection with the ramp to the building and to the courtyard. Okay, so this is just to show you that the building was already present here. This is another image that really shows shipyards all in the front. Of course, this is the reconstruction. The original palace. This is the main building, which is older than the 1500s. This is already post-earthquake reconstruction, but this is the main tower, still medieval. And then there was another palace here that at some point the two families they joined, and that's why we call the square today o Lago do Combará. One was the Earl, the other one was Combará. So this is just to give you an idea of where the building stands. So as you can see, the water was here. So all this was against the beach, and it's a building that you still have. We also asked Pedro to do which is done beautiful. This artist did a beautiful book that we are working on a book, but he did beautiful pictures of the building, which is all this destruction and what's left from there. And of course, the building was very, very important. And this, what you see here is already a reconstruction, some details of the interior program of painting and woodworks. But there were layers of paint on all this frame. And now it's at this stage, this condition. This is what you can see today. So this was the tile from the kitchens. This is what you have. This is the back facade of the building, and this was transformed into a bus station. I'm just passing some images so that I can explain the problem. So this is what you could see on the previous drawing, the main entrance. This was lowered for the tracks for the buses to get in, because the height was much higher. This was already in addition. But the most important element here, one of the reasons it was classified as a national monument, is the courtyard and all the works in the Renaissance wood and stonework, which is very good. But this is the way the building is today. Very refined. But this is the main courtyard, and as you can see, it's in terrible condition, but still maintains the quality, the architectural quality that it does. And this is again the bus station at the back. So all the gardens of the palace were all occupied. So the idea here was we had a very strong building with a very important patio in terms of its classification and its beauty. And then we had to find a strategy. We had to demolish the whole garage. This was the first step, to demolish the whole garage and propose a new building as an extension of the palace, so that we could, for this program, we could use, which is a good strategy, it was already defined by the program, that we could use the palace rooms more for common areas, that we could not have to break the rooms in smaller rooms, that we could use that as some of the common areas, use some of the large rooms also to make bigger suites, and then define a way for intervention in the garden. And our strategy was to in a way to create a garden, to go back to the original idea and find a way that we could, instead of having a building and a garden, it was to have a garden that has a building inside and the two things are together. So this was the starting point as the idea for the project. And in a way that we could arrive in the building and immediately see what could be a garden. okay, and not a building. So, and this was the original to recreate the garden of Eden, you know, where you have the presence of the greenery, the water, the trees, and the building will be sort of somehow sort of being taken over by the wild garden that we wanted to have. For that, we had to, of course, create this metallic structures and a series of things, and I'll explain to you. Since these are some of the rooms that we just, you know, took off and kept the existing, the furniture is just to give scale, it's nothing that we propose. It's just to have these rooms to, again, get back to this idea of having the relationship with the back garden of the building, which before didn't exist. Taking advantage of the high ceilings of the palace. Sorry. Cleaning up the facade as much as possible and bring to the essence, because here we have a beautiful Renaissance arch that is now cut by one room that is here that was done to connect this palace to the other one, which is very strange. So we also proposed to clean up all the things. But the rest is just restoring it, doing new windows and facades. And the possibility of having a pool on the terrace. Okay, for that, so here we have the original palace, the patio, and then you have one beautiful tank that now it's divided in two, and it's all fully covered of buildings and outer buildings and a mess. So what we're doing is we're creating a new set of verandas here, all the way around, so that these are covered by green here, and then you have the building behind, and we also have a green garden at the back. So the building is fully, start to understand the numbers, but it's fully covered by greenery, and you have a water tank here going around on the garden level, and then the pool at the other level. And just to explain you things, I mean, this is the basement. Yellow, and for you who don't know, yellow is what's going to be demolished, red is what's going to be new, for those who don't know, but I think it's good for you to understand this is some kind of diagrams we need to do to understand what we are demolishing and what we are putting new. So this is the basement where they currently have a safe. We're doing the bathrooms and all the areas for the restaurant. And then here we're going to do a huge intervention, which is to reinforce structurally, do the structural reinforcement of all the columns of the Renaissance patio. So we're going to extend the digging here and do a reinforced concrete structure. And at the same time, we're going to use this reinforced structure to expand the kitchen area. So this is the entrance of the hotel, kitchen area, restaurant, elevators to connect the top floor. Here are bedrooms that are at a different level because there's a ramp here. And then staff areas. I'm not going to explain the project too much, otherwise you get lost. This is very complicated. Here, these are rooms that we're just restoring, we're doing not more. Here there's a service kitchen. This is the room that is connected to the garden. This is the garden here. And then more. These are the main suites that are done in some of those very large rooms that nothing touches the ceilings. It's like an element inside the space. I'm just passing this because I'm going to explain the process of it. This is just to show you that there's a lot of work that you need to anticipate. So you can see. Of course, I mean, here we had to restore all the original doors and everything. We're going to redo some of them, are going to be totally new, but with the same detail, the original detail. These are something very important. This is diagrams that you have several diagrams like this where you start organizing the project, meaning what types of walls do we have, what types of ceilings do we have, what type of floors do we have, what type of everything. So that we very easily understand how we organize the project, and if you want to shift one material, we know exactly where they are and what are the implications if you change. So this is something very, very useful. These are types of walls, for instance, walls, especially if you're working in a hotel, you have different safety issues, fire safety, insulation, soundproofing, you have so many stuff that you need to incorporate into a building. At some point you are so lost with so much information that you really need to refocus and start to clarify all these things. In the end, I mean, these drawings are very useful. Types of walls, for instance. All the detail. Everything. If you put a fountain in the middle of the Renaissance part, you need to know where you need to have a pump, and you need to put the pump somewhere, and then you need to drain this at somewhere. I mean, it's a whole complex. You need to study with the engineers how we're going to do the reinforcement without ruining the building and some of the painting work that's there. How do you reinforce the flooring without ruining the paintings that are underneath? I mean, there's so many. In order to do something, it's like we're going to Instagram to see one image. I think it's very important for you to understand that to arrive there, I mean, we architects like to come here and explain that this is very easy. So we just like to show a little bit at the end. But it's very important for you to know that in order to reach that, you need to put a lot into the process. Okay? All the different kinds of diagrams to how to structure the metal structure that's going to be surrounding the building, types of detailing, types of connections. Okay. So, and here, and here you can see, what was the palace, and then, all these warehouses. You can anticipate that you're going to have now a garden with a rooftop, also like an extension of the garden, and we are regaining back all this central area of the original garden that was lost. So that's it. So if you want to have questions, I'm here.
Pedro, obrigado.
Nada. So I was not so much focused on the projects, but I think on the issues that we have when we develop it. So, questions?
I have a question about the house in July. How is the process with lines that have a completely different culture, their own culture, and with the people that are going to use that house?
Now that's the nicest thing about this project. It's to learn about the culture. It's to start to understand how people live, especially when you have the issue of the life in the privacy of the people. It's very important. So you start to develop it. First, you need to gain the trust, because you have these people of course, as you can imagine, they're very wealthy, and so you have project managers that come to us, and then we have to discuss with them, and then in a second layer, then we meet the family, and then once you meet the family, you have meetings in Paris, in London, in Lisbon never, but in the factories we are producing the windows. We have meetings there. We have meetings in the quarries in Turkey to select the stone. You have so you have to go around like that. So, but it's, I mean, for us here, the living of the family was more important in the sense that we need to organize what needs to be done in order for that to happen. Meaning, how do we want to set up the stuff, all these systems. We have to put different codes. Only men have, as I was explaining, only men have access to certain parts of the house. And when we went to other parts of the house, they could never cross. This is a nightmare to understand. I mean, we design it for them. It's not a general thing. Yeah. But that's challenging. But I mean, if you see from the image, I haven't photographed the house yet, but you want to feel in the house. It could be a house for any person, really, because I mean, they live in one. So but it's a very interesting thing. But it's not. It's just because it's new. It's different for us. If you, for instance, designing a house for the German family, it was the same, but different issues. But it's always getting into people's lives, and this is the most interesting. That's why it's interesting to do houses, because you really have to get involved with the people. So we are designing, not just you're designing for a way of, you're proposing a way of living, and you have to combine these things with the way you build it. And you have to, and of course it's an experimental field where you can do different things. I mean, all these houses that we've been doing in the office with the team, we always, in every house, we always try a different thing, different material, different way of setting the layout. Now we're doing houses which are totally different. They're not so, they're still open, but they're more a country house, because it has different functions. The program is different. So, but I would say that that's the nice thing about designing houses, because you're designing for a family, a person, yeah? And you have a very strong relationship. And this is key, yeah? To develop this relationship. Nice. Leandro. They work in the studio now. They're here. 2 students are here.
How long did it took each project, more or less, since the
time? So, Comporta, 2016 until today, till last year. I mean, the house is ready. It's been used since last summer, so 4 years, 5 years. Yeah. But we had to stop. I mean, the design process is normally 1 year. Licensing, designing is normally 1 year. The other house in Dubai, it took a little longer because we had to have the design team in Portugal, and then you have to have the design team in Dubai that translates everything into the local code and to all that. So it took a little bit longer. But then it was more involvement, because there was lots of interior design as well, and lots of detailing, and so. But that took a bit longer. The housing project took 1 year, 2 years to get it approved. 2 years to get it approved. No, it was fast, but we had to do. But you know, one thing that I didn't explain, we did those renders for the competition. We changed the project like more than 20 times, and we went back to the original drawing.
In this one?
Yeah, which is totally crazy. We just adjusted the bits. There was no. That's crazy. And the other one, the design process took longer, because the palettes it was very difficult to find a balance to integrate the detailing and the way the things that you can touch in the building, you cannot touch. To put all this together, and then there was an interior design team that came. We had to do the work for them, because they didn't understand the building, so we had to take over, because they were coming with totally like if they were in Dubai, you see, with Las Vegas feeling. This is a national moment, you cannot do that here. So, but I think the interesting here it's the different kinds of projects that we're doing.
and this is something very important. It's important to do different kinds of scales and different kinds of programs and the relations with the clients. But they all take a long time. This is something that we have to get used to.
É verdade. É um tempo infinito.
So I'd like to know, where did you start to introduce the motherboard system for the project?
The mood boards, I think we started the mood boards in the project we did in Dubai, but not for not this project in Dubai. For another one, we did a project for a farm project that we needed to. First of all, before creating the buildings, we needed to create a strategy for the use of the land and the program. So we had to first understand what is a modern farm. It's like building an oasis, really. So we needed to understand what functions we would need to have there and what kind of. And this was the first time we started to have the mood boards, and they were more related to activities and programs. But I think it's a very good way to communicate, because for us it puts you on the track for the project and helps the client to understand vaguely where they are. So that if you go to Comporta, if you go to, for instance, if you go to Grândola, we're doing another house in the middle of the country, which is a different, it's a country house, it's not a beach house. So the mood board is totally different. It's about earth, it's about creating a connection with the land, it's about setting your life cycle, understanding that you have to bake bread, that you have to cook, that you have to maybe get things from the garden. So it's very much, the mood board for us, what allows us to get people to understand what life can be, and architecture come as a stage for it to happen. So it's very, for us, it's for me, when I think in the office we all from that, it's to get people engaged in the life they can have, and the building drives them in that direction.
É como uma ferramenta, não diria uma ferramenta, mas um veículo. A arquitetura é um veículo
para a vida,
e para descobrir essas características que podem ser vividas num determinado lugar que não podem ser no outro, e as destacar, as dar valor. Eu acho que isso é muito bonito, é um comentário, não é uma pergunta, mas acho que é muito bonito, e foi muito bonito, achei muito interessante a maneira como apresentaste todos os projetos, com escalas muito diferentes, alguns deles, mas que normalmente começavas sempre de uma maneira talvez objetiva, mas também pessoal, que é a primeira aproximação é ao lugar, entender a topografia, o contexto do lugar, mas mais expandido. Uma segunda aproximação é mais à intimidade desse lugar, não é? Que elementos da natureza, que outros elementos é que estão lá, e daí fazes como uma espécie de catálogo, entre aspas, não é? De que elementos é que estão presentes ali, mais íntimos, não é? Que depois te servem para desenhar, para encontrar as materialidades, os acabamentos. E, portanto, fazes assim tipo um mapa de elementos íntimos daquele lugar e guardas
os pequenos momentos, não é?
Exato. E depois falas sempre, portanto, há estes dois momentos, do lugar mais expandido, do lugar, entendimento do lugar como um campo mais expandido, depois mais na intimidade, dos elementos que o caracterizam, e depois falas sempre de estratégia. Qual é, depois disto, a nossa estratégia foi. E em cada projeto, claro que há uma estratégia diferente. E isto da estratégia, acho que é muito importante, assim, em geral, no projeto, que é desde o início termos uma intenção do projeto.
Absolutamente.
E vamos atrás, o projeto vai atrás dessa intenção, e é essa intenção que faz com que se desenvolva todo o processo de trabalho. Não é? Porque muitas vezes, quando não temos uma intenção clara, andamos já assim, pode ser assim, pode ser assim.
That's what I try to teach them at school. We had a conversation about this morning. So.
Exatamente. Mas vê-se que é muito presente no teu. I'm sorry, I switched the question.
No, it's fine. Okay. Good.
Mais nenhuma pergunta, nenhum comentário?
Estou à vontade.
Ok.
Tá?
Alguém tem alguma dúvida acerca do trabalho? Alguém tem alguma entrega? Não. Então, na próxima.